Om Namah Shivaya, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskara everyone. I would like to start off by bowing down to the feet of Kashi Vishwanatha and Vishalakshi Annapurna, who eternally reside in Kashi and in everyone's hearts. Today, the senior meetup that happens every month, we decided to host it in our house because it is my grandparents' 50th anniversary, and I am very honored to be narrating the Shiva Kalyanam through narrations as well as music on this day. Before we start, I want to acknowledge that there are many versions of Shiva Kalyanam. There is Meenakshi Sundareshwara Kalyanam, there is Parvata Vardhini and Rameshwara Kalyanam that takes place at the bottom tip of India in Rameshwaram. There is Girija Kalyana, which takes place in the mountains, and so on. So before we start, I wanted to acknowledge that the main source that I will be predominantly drawing from is the Gauri Kalyanam, which takes place in the mountains. But there are also some very beautiful instances and tales that are said in regional literature that we have also added into the mix. So before we start, I would like to start with the Ganesha Shakthi.
Many are taking you can circle it.
Namamma Sharade Uma Maheshwari Nimmolagi Hanyaramma. Namamma Sharade Uma Maheshwari Nimmolagi Hanyaramma. Kammagorana Vairi Sudanada Sundila Hemmaya Gananathane Ammaya Namamma Sharade Uma Maheshwari Nimmolagi Hanyaramma. More kappina bhava ಮೊರದಗಲದ ಕಿವಿ ಕೋರೆದಾಡೆಯನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ. ಮೋರೆ ಕಪ್ಪಿನ ಭಾವ ಮೊರದಗಲದ ಕಿವಿ ಕೋರೆದಾಡೆಯನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ. ಮೂರು ಕಣ್ಣನ ಸೂತ ಮುರಿದೇಟ ಚಂದ್ರನ ಧೀರತ ಗಣನಾಥನೇ ಅಮ್ಮಯ್ಯ ನಮ್ಮಮ್ಮ ಶಾರದೆ ಉಮಾ ಮಹೇಶ್ವರಿ ನಿಮ್ಮೊಳಗಿ ಹನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ. ಹುಟ್ಟದಟ್ಟಿಯು ಬೆಗಿದುಟ್ಟ ಚಲ್ಲನಗ ದಿಟ್ಟ ತಾನಿವನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ. ಹುಟ್ಟದಟ್ಟಿಯು ಬೆಗಿದುಟ್ಟ ಚಲ್ಲನಗ ದಿಟ್ಟ ತಾನಿವನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ. ಪಟ್ಟದ ರಾಣಿ ಪಾರ್ವತಿಯ ಕುಮಾರನು ಹೊಟ್ಟೆಯ ಗಣನಾಥನೇ ಅಮ್ಮಯ್ಯ ನಮ್ಮಮ್ಮ ಶಾರದೆ ಉಮಾ ಮಹೇಶ್ವರಿ ನಿಮ್ಮೊಳಗಿ ಹನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ. ರಾಶಿ ವಿದ್ಯೆಯ ಬಲ್ಲ ರಮಣಿ ಹಂಬಲನೊಲ್ಲ ಭಾಷಿಗ ನಿವನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ. ರಾಶಿ ವಿದ್ಯೆಯ ಬಲ್ಲ ರಮಣಿ ಹಂಬಲನೊಲ್ಲ ಭಾಷಿಗ ನಿವನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ. ಲೇಸಾಗಿ ಜನರ ಸಲಹುವಗಾಗಿ ನೆಲೆಯಾದಿ ಕೇಶವದಾಸ ಕಣೆ ಅಮ್ಮಯ್ಯ ನಮ್ಮಮ್ಮ ಶಾರದೆ ಉಮಾ ಮಹೇಶ್ವರಿ ನಿಮ್ಮೊಳಗಿಹನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ ನಿಮ್ಮೊಳಗಿಹನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ ನಿಮ್ಮೊಳಗಿಹನ್ಯಾರಮ್ಮ. Okay, now we'll start with the Shiva Kalyanam itself. First, I wanted to ask the audience who knows the overall gist of Shiva Kalyanam and who can name me some of the characters? Santoshi?
Daksha.
Yes. Pranav?
Shakthi.
Yes. Are there any volunteers in the audience?
Okay, Sandeep is asking a question. I don't know when did you guys hear the question? Okay, Sandeep, you need to repeat the question.
Who knows the overall gist of Shiva Kalyanam and the characters in it?
Himavanta.
Yes, Himavan.
Characters of
Himavanta is Parvati's father.
Menaka and Lakshmi.
Yes, okay. So the tale itself is probably well known to most of us, but today we will explore some of the lesser known aspects in these well known stories. So we start off our story with Daksha, who is one of the many Prajapatis on the earth, and he's the son of Brahma. And Prajapatis are agents of creation, so their responsibility is to populate the earth. And in order to do this, Daksha needs that primordial energy's blessings. He needs Adi Shakti's blessings. And it has been Daksha, like many people before him, alongside him, and even after him, it has been his desire to have the mother goddess come as his own daughter. So he does tapas to Adi Shakti, and Adi Shakti appears to him and says, "What is your ask?" And Daksha says, "I want you to come as my daughter." And Adi Shakti agrees, but she stipulates a condition right there and then. And this part is often missed out when we tell the story very quickly. She says, "I will come as your daughter, but you must always remember that I eternally belong to Shiva." Shivasya Sahaja Dhruva is what the Upanishads say. It means I eternally belong to Shiva. So Shakti says, "I will come as your daughter, but you must make me marry Shiva, and you must place my hand into his." So Daksha agrees to this at first, but who has he called for as his daughter? He has called Mahamaya herself. So Mahamaya deludes him, and as Shakti is growing in his kingdom, Daksha starts to believe that he owns her. So as Daksha's child, who is named Sati, as most of us know, as she is growing in the kingdom, Daksha, he starts to believe that he has the right to every single decision that she makes, that he can control her. And he sees that Sati is very deeply devoted to Shiva. And at first, he thinks of this as a phase. He thinks it won't last very long. And it's important to note that Daksha did not think very highly of Shiva. Daksha considered Narayana to be his own grandfather, because Daksha is one of the sons of Brahma, and Brahma comes from the Nabhi Kamalam, or the lotus navel of Narayana. So Daksha considers Narayana to be his own grandfather, and he considers Vishnu to be much more superior to Shiva. But Sati is going on in this devotion, and Sati's love for Shiva doesn't give her any time to focus on anything else. So Daksha comes up to her and says, "Who are you going to marry? I will arrange a Swayamvara for you." And Sati says, "What is the need for a Swayamvara? I've already chosen a husband." Daksha doesn't listen to this. He still goes ahead and arranges a Swayamvara for Sati. And Sati comes to this Swayamvara. She has a mala around her hands, and she's walking along the row of kings in the Sabha. But her mind is only set on one person, and that is Paramashiva. But Paramashiva is not at the Sabha. So what she does, she throws the mala into the Akasha, and she utters 5 very powerful syllables. Does anybody know what those 5 powerful syllables are that she utters?
Om Namah Shivaya.
Yes, Om Namah Shivaya. As soon as she utters Om Namah Shivaya, Parameshwara suddenly appears in front of her, and the mala drops onto his neck. So the Swayamvara is over. Sati did her job. She technically found her husband, Whether that husband was invited to the Swayamvara or not is a different story, but she still found a husband. And now, since society is watching over him, Daksha is forced to conduct this wedding of Sati and Shiva, and he does this very unhappily and very reluctantly. Now I will sing a song on Paramashiva, Nada Tanu Manisham.
Very good.
Nada Tanu Manisham, Nada Tanu Manisham, Shankaram, Nada Tanu Manisham, Shankaram, Nada Tanu Manisham, Shankaram, Namami Me Manasa Shirasa, Nada Tanu Manisham, Shankaram, Namami Me Manasa Shirasa, Nada Tanu Manisham. Modakara Nigamotama Sama Veda Saram Varam Varam, Modakara Nigamotama Sama Veda Saram Varam Varam, Nada Tanu Manisham, Shankaram, Namami Me Manasa Shirasa, Nada Tanu Manisham. Sadyo Jatadi Panchavatraja, Sadyo Jatadi Panchavatraja, Sarigama Padani Varasapta Swara, Sadyo Jatadi Panchavatraja, Sarigama Padani Varasapta Swara, Vidyalolam Vidalita Kalam, Vidyalolam Vidalita Kalam, Vimala Hridaya Tyagaraja Palam, Vimala Hridaya Tyagaraja Palam, Nada Tanu Manisham, Shankaram, Namami Me Manasa Shirasa, Nada Tanu Manisham. Now Shiva and Sati are very happily married, and I'm going to be fast forwarding to one of the lesser known tales in this story. There is one person who is seeing everything that has happened, and he knows exactly when to arrive, how to arrive, where to arrive, and what to say. And that person, he comes in every climax scene of every tale to keep the story going and to add some tension, and that is Narada Muni. So Narada Muni sees that Daksha, in the future, after Shiva and Sati are happily married, he sees that Daksha is organizing a very big Mahayagna. But our two main characters, Shiva and Sati, are not even invited. So Narada sees this and he says, oh, I need to add some tension to the story. So I will go to Shiva. And so he goes to Shiva and he says, Shiva, don't you know that your father-in-law is arranging a very big Mahayagnam? Why are you not invited? And Shiva is doing his tapas very peacefully and he says, let him do what he wants, I will do what I want. Everyone is happy where they are. So Narada soon realizes that he cannot get the story going on with this guy. So he has to go to Sati. So Narada goes to Sati and says the same thing. He says, your father is organizing a Mahayagnam. Why are you not invited? And Sati is very confused by this. She's wondering, how did the invite miss her? So she immediately goes to Shiva and she says, come, let's go to my father's yagna. Shiva says, no, we cannot go. We are not invited. Sati says, no, he doesn't need to invite me. I'm his daughter. And this argument continues to escalate and intensify. And at the very climax of this argument, Shiva says a remark and he says, you know what? Of course you have made up your mind. After all, you're Dakshayini. And he goes and storms off. And Sati's eyes widen and she said, what did you just call me? And Shiva says, you are just like your stubborn father. You are equally stubborn as your father. You are Dakshayini. And he goes and walks off again. And Shiva is very angry at this point right now. He wants to get away from Sati because they just had an argument. Suddenly, a blazing beam of light appears right in front of Shiva. It's blazing and he can't see. Shiva covers his eyes and he's blinded by this light. So he turns to the other side. The other side also a blinding beam of light comes. He turns to all four sides. All four sides there is blinding beams of light, north, east, south and west. Now Shiva tries to escape in the in-between directions, north, east, south, west. Of no use. The blinding lights appear there also. So there are 8 blinding beams of light surrounding Shiva now. He's getting a major headache right now. So he looks up to the Akasha to escape. As soon as he does that, a blinding beam of light appears from the Akasha as well. And his last option is to look down, but a blinding beam of light has already appeared there also. So this is a very beautiful scene. Shiva is in the center and there are 10 beams of light surrounding him. 8 that are actually surrounding him, 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. And Shiva is stuck in this position. He doesn't know what to do. And when he is stuck, each of these 10 beams of light take a form. And each of those forms are huge. They stretch from the tip of the Akasha to the bottom of Patalam. And each of those forms take 10 different forms of 10 different goddesses. And as many of you might have guessed, these are the Dasha Mahavidyas. And Dasha being 10, Mahavidya being extraordinary forms. So Shiva is in the center with 10 forms of 10 different goddesses surrounding him. And all of those goddesses speak in one collective booming voice saying, what did you call me? You called me Dakshayini? You reduced me to just being Daksha's father? Look around you, Daksha's daughter. Look around you, Shiva. These are 10 forms of my absolute Parashakti. These are 10 forms of my knowledge. And Shiva is awestruck right now. He doesn't know what is going on. So he says, what do you want me to do? And 10 different pairs of eyes, 10 mouths smile at him. And they say, I said I will go to my father's yagna. I will go. But I will give you homework. I need you to write the tantra or the way of worship for each of these 10 different forms around you. And that is why if you see in any of the Dasha Mahavidya systems, you see Shiva being the guru. You cannot reach Shakti without Shiva, and you cannot reach Shiva without Shakti. So Shakti has given Shiva this tremendous amount of homework, so he's busy doing that. And now Sati has gone to Daksha's Yagnam, and she goes directly to Daksha and questions him, why did you not invite me? And Daksha says, no, I did not mean to invite you. I just thought that you will come with that Kapali, the one who has matted hair and skulls around his neck, and I didn't really want him to come so. But I'm really glad that you came. And at this point, this is the breaking point for Sati. And as most of us know, this is the point where she leaves her deham by collapsing into the fire of the yagnam. And as soon as this happens, everyone present at the yagnam is so stunned. And they're getting scared now because Sati did not come alone. Sati came with many Shiva Ganas. Shiva sent his Ganas to look out for her. And so, once this sudden plot twist happened, all the Shiva Ganas rushed to Kailasa and the news reaches Shiva in no time. And as soon as Shiva hears this, he's furious, he's angry. So he furiously rips out 2 pieces of his hair and he slams them onto a nearby rock. And from this, two phenomenal forms of Shiva emerge. They are Veerabhadra and his counterpart Bhadrakali. Now, whenever we hear the word Bhadra, it always signifies protection. So these two forms have come out of Shiva's anger, and they are meant to destroy Daksha's yagnam, but they protect us, they protect the devotees. So Shiva says, go and destroy Daksha's yagnam, because the whole basis of this yagnam was adharmic. It was done to insult me, and because of this, Sati is gone. So the team of Veerabhadra and Bhadrakali and all the Shivaganas are marching to Daksha's yagnam with one sole purpose, to destroy everything. And in these next series of events, we see that Shiva Kalyanam is not a tale where you can differentiate who is good and who is evil. In the Mahabharata, we have Kauravas versus Pandavas. You can easily see who is good and evil. You can see black and white. In the Ramayana, we have Rama versus Ravana. But in the Shiva Kalyanam, it's not like that. The Devatas are present at the Yagnam. All the Devatas are there at the Yagnam. They didn't care if Shiva was invited or not. They were invited, so they will go. And now, they have to face their karma. Because karma does not leave anyone. This is also what the Bhagavad Gita says. If you are a silent supporter of bad things, if you see bad things happening and you just silently spectate, then you will have the same karma as the person who is doing those bad things. And this is why, if you see in the Shiva Ashtotra, which is a sacred chant of 108 names of Shiva, the 101st name is stated as Om Bhaganetra Bhede Namaha. Bhaga is one of the many forms of Surya, and he is there quietly supporting Daksha at the Yagnam. So Veerabhadra sees this, and he plucks out Bhaga's eyes. Bhaganetra Bhide Namaha. So each of the Devatas are paying for what they have done. And even though they still have Shiva Bhakti in their hearts, they did not loudly oppose whatever Daksha was doing. So this whole Yagnam is being ransacked right now. It's looking like a battlefield. And there's one person who is biting his lip and getting especially tensed, and that is Daksha. Because after all, he is the one who has caused all of this. But he remembers that he had prayed to one person during the Yagnam to protect it in case something like this happens. He prayed to Vishnu. Why did he pray to Vishnu? Vishnu is eternally Yagna Swarupam and eternally Yagna Rakshaka. Even in the Vishnu Sahasranamam, it states Yagno Yagnapatir Yajva, Yagnango Yagna Vahanaha. Everything about Yagnam suggests Vishnu. Vishnu's eternal sthanam is that of Yagna Rakshaka. So Daksha, he rushes over to Vishnu and he says, I requested you something while I was doing my Yagnam. I requested that you be my Yagna Rakshaka, that you protect my Yagnam. And now Veerabhadra and Bhadrakali are ransacking my Yagnam. Isn't it your responsibility to protect my Yagnam? And Vishnu smiles and he says, yes, you came and asked me about protecting your Yagnam, no doubt about that. But you paid no attention to something that I said after. You were in a hurry to leave. I said, I will protect your Yagnam as much as you called me to protect your Yagnam. Beyond that, whatever has to happen will happen. And we will see what will happen in the next series of events. So after Vishnu says this, he still has his responsibility of being Yagna Rakshaka. So he goes to Daksha's Yagnam and he comes face to face with Veerabhadra. And this is a very beautiful scene, because Veerabhadra is so consumed in anger that his Swami has been hurt that he does not even see that Vishnu is in front of him. So they engage in a very, very intense combat. Vishnu swings his Sudarshana Chakra at Veerabhadra. Veerabhadra swallows it. But don't worry, Vishnu gets it back later in a different story. But during the climax of this combat, Veerabhadra realizes that this is the Yagna Rakshaka, this is the person who is enabling Daksha's Yagnam. So I need to not let this go, I need to defeat him. So he picks up his Trishulam and he's about to kill Vishnu with that Trishulam. Suddenly his hand freezes, Virabhadra's hand freezes in midair, and he hears an Akashavani of somebody's voice that is not in this vicinity anymore. He hears his own Swami Shakti. He hears Sati's voice in the Akashavani, and Sati says, Kopecha Kalika Rupa. When I am angry, I become Kalika. Sangrame Durga Rupa. When I am in the state of war, I become Durga. Saumye Bhavani Rupoham. When I am in a pleased state, I am Bhavani. And lastly, she says, Pum Rupa Vishnu Vigraha. When I choose to take on a masculine energy or take on a masculine form, I become Vishnu. So Sati has just said a handful to Virabhadra. She says, when I am angry, I am Kali. When I am preparing for war, I am Durga. When I am in a pleased state, I am Bhavani. And she says, when I choose to take on a masculine form, I become Vishnu. So the person you are about to kill is none other than me. Put down that Trishulam, Virabhadra. So Virabhadra is absolutely stunned. He doesn't know what is going on, but all he knows is that he cannot defy his Swami or Swami Shakti. So he puts down the Trishulam. Now at this point, mostly all of the Devatas are injured and this whole place is looking like an absolute battlefield. And Brahma looks at this and he says, no matter what the intention of the Yagnam was, a Yagnam that has already started should come to an end. Otherwise, it is not good for Lokakshema. So how do we stop this Yagnam? We have to stop the Shivaganas. But who will the Shivaganas listen to? They will only listen to Parameshvara. So we have a very odd dynamic here. All the Shivaganas are here on Parameshvara's behalf. All the Devatas, they want to appease Parameshvara. But who has the courage to actually face him? Because he has just lost Sati and he is fuming. So, but Brahma, everyone steps back and refuses. We're too scared to go and go in front of Parameshvara. But Brahma finally convinces Indra and the other Devatas and he says, you took part in this Yagnam, so you must own up to the responsibility of pacifying Shiva. Come with me to Kailasa. So Brahma, Indra and all the Devatas go to Kailasa and they're extremely terrified. How will they even face Shiva? So they come to Kailasa, and Kailasa is not the Kailasa that you see in TV shows or serials where there is one little sad, solitary peak and then there's a rock that's the size of this stage where Shiva sits on. Kailasa is as vast as Vaikuntha and Manidvipam itself. It's a vast bhavanam. And it has various prakarams as well. Various prakarams or enclosures. So the innermost prakaram is where Shiva resides. So all the Devatas are opening the gates of the prakaram and they're very, very scared. And Indra opens the gate and he says, what is happening here? I don't recognize this place. They expected to see Shiva in a very, very angry and furious state. But instead, they all saw such a strange and extraordinary phenomenon. They see Chitram Vatataror Mule Vridha Shishya Gurudyuva. Very strange sight. There is a huge golden banyan tree, and at the base of this massive banyan tree, there is a strange sight. Chitram, there is something strange. Vridha Shishya Gurudyuva. There are 4 disciples, and they are very old and ancient. And their guru is just a 16-year-old child. Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam. Now usually when a guru is teaching something to the disciples, they are physically saying something. But this 16-year-old guru is not saying anything at all. He's just staying silent. Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Shishyastu Chinna Samshayaha. All the doubts of the Shishyas, all the doubts of the disciples are addressed just by the Guru's silence. And Indra looks at this and says, who is this? Where is Shiva? And Brahma points at the 16-year-old child and says, this Divya Mangala Swarupa that you are seeing is none other than Shiva as the primordial Guru, as Dakshinamurti. And seeing that this is the literal form of Shantam, all the devatas take this chance and they plead with Shiva to restore the yagnam and finish it. And Shiva agrees and he appears at the yagnam. Shiva himself is Mrityunjaya, so how hard is it for him to bring back all the devatas? So he brings back all the devatas just by his mere presence. Except Daksha's body is lying on one side of the floor and Daksha's head is lying on the other side. And Brahma looks at this and says, please put him back together. And there is a beautiful moral that we can take away from this one detail. The literal meaning of Daksha is capability, pure capability. And Daksha is one such person who only has capability but he has no dayam or compassion. Daksha Murti is the epitome of daya and compassion. See, if there's an accident on the road and a person with just pure capability, just Daksha, and has no dayam, he will not help the person who is injured. Whereas a person with only dayam but no Daksha, with only dayam but no capability, will also cannot be able to help the person. So the lokam around them still suffers in each case. And Dakshinamurti is the epitome of both daya and both compassion and capability. He's the form of it. So he takes pity on Daksha and tells one of the devatas to go and bring the sacrificial goat head. And he places that goat head on Daksha's body. Why did he do this? Because before all of this, Daksha used to be so proud of his thinking. He used to think in all the three lokas, there is nobody who knows strategy and intellect better than me. But now when he is thinking, he will realize that he's thinking with a goat's head. And now Daksha is very apologetic to Shiva. But what is the use? Shiva, suddenly all of Shiva's anger and sadness emerges again because he sees the biggest trigger for him. He sees Sati's deham. So he picks up Sati's body and he goes to the Gagana Mandalam, he goes to the skies. And he starts an Akala Tandavam. Akala means untimely. And this Tandavam is very dangerous because of its untimeliness and the intensity of the energy. So as soon as Shiva starts this Tandavam, the entire universe is at risk of being destroyed. So all Brahma and all the devatas go to Narada. And Narada knows the exact person for this task. In reality, there are only 3 people who can even face Shiva when he is doing Tandavam. And all of those 3 people are part of his family. They are Shakthi and his 2 children. But the 2 children have not arrived yet, so they are out of the question. But Narada recalls something that Sati had said earlier in her Akashavani. He remembers that Sati had said, my masculine form is there in Vaikuntha waiting. So Narada rushes to Vaikuntha and brings Vishnu. Vishnu comes to Daksha's Yagnam and he notices that Shiva's dance is very rhythmic. He's putting his legs at certain beats and it's making a loud booming noise. And he also notices another thing. He notices that Shiva's main trigger in continuing the Tandavam is that he's holding Sati's body. So if Sati's body is not there, then he will stop dancing. So Vishnu uses this to his advantage and he swings his Sudarshana Chakram at every beat of Shiva's Tandavam and he starts cutting pieces of Sati's body. And after he does this, all of the pieces of Sati's body are gone and Shiva suddenly realizes that what he was holding suddenly became lighter and he opens his eyes and he looks and there is no Sati. And Shiva is absolutely furious and without even thinking, Shiva says, I curse whoever has done this to know the pain of separation from their loved one. And Narada comes and says, Shiva, Shiva, what did you say? And Shiva says, who did this, Narada? Narada says, Vishnu did this. Shiva bites his lip and says, oh, Vishnu did this? Shiva is extremely fond of Vishnu. And Vishnu starts smiling at the back and he says, don't worry, I have to go to Bhuloka anyways. There is one Rakshasa waiting for me at the bottom tip of India in Lankapuri, and this will give me some context as to why I need to defeat him. And who is that avatara? That's Rama avataram. But Shiva is still very upset that he gave this curse, so he says, I am responsible for bringing you two together in that avataram. So Shiva comes as Hanuman in that avataram. So we have a little bit of Sundara Kandam going on here, but that's a deviation. So Shiva finally stops his Tandavam and he says, I am feeling the pangs of separation from Sati. I will now go and do my tapas in some place that can hold my energy. So Shiva goes to Kamakya Peetam in modern day Assam, and that is where it is said that the whole universe was formed. So Shiva goes there and he does his tapas. Now Shiva and Shakti are temporarily displaced, so demonic forces are going to increase. And there is one Rakshasa who notices the separation of Shiva and Shakti, and he asks for a very interesting vara from Brahma, and he says, I can only be killed by the son of Shiva and Shakti, because he's pretty confident that that won't happen very soon. And that Rakshasa is Tarakasura. So Tarakasura has this vara, and he starts ransacking Devaloka and everywhere. So Indra, he brings all of the Devatas together and says, look, we are the ones who caused the separation of Shiva and Shakti because we attended Daksha's Yagnam. It is now our responsibility to bring them back together. Let us go do tapas in the Himalayas. So all the Devatas go to the Himalayas and they each worship Sati in a different way. It's very beautiful. One does Homam, one does Japam, one does Sangita, one does Natya, and etc. etc. And the guardian deity of one of these mountain peaks looks at this and he goes up to one of the Devatas doing the tapas and he says, who are you worshipping? And the Devata says, we are worshipping Adi Shakti, we are pleading for her to come back. And this guardian deity is overjoyed when he hears this and he rushes over to his palace and tells his wife Maina Devi. This guardian deity is none other than Himavan, the king of Himavat Parvata. And he says, for so many years we wanted Adi Shakti to come as our child, and now is our chance. The Devatas are anyways doing all their worshipping in the Himalayas only. So Himavan, he also starts doing the worshipping with the Devatas, and he goes and does tapas to Adi Shakti every day. And Adi Shakti finally appears to the Devatas and Himavan and says, I will come again as Himavan's daughter. So the Devatas are very pleased, Himavan is also very pleased, and everyone is getting ready for her arrival. And very soon, Shakti is born to Himavan's kingdom, and she is named Parvati, as most of us know. Now when people tell this part of the story, we always think, oh, Parvati is the one that is yearning to be with Shiva. Parvati wants to be with Shiva so much. But Shiva is also no less. See, Shiva, all this time, he was in eastern India, in Assam. And as soon as he hears that Shakti is born, he quietly transfers to the Himalayas and says, oh, actually, these mountains are very nice for tapas. Shiva cannot stay away from her very long. Now I will sing Himagiri Tanaye on the occasion of Parvati's birth. Himagiri Tanaye Hemalate, Himagiri Tanaye Hemalate, Himagiri Tanaye Hemalate, Amba Ishwari Shri Lalite, Mamava 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 Himagiri Tanaye Hemalate. Ramavani Samsevita Sakale, Ramavani Samsevita सहोदरी हिमगिरितनये हे मनते अम्बाईश्वरी श्रीललिते मामव हिमगिरितनये हे मलते पाशाङ्कुशेक्षुदण्डकरे अम्ब पाशाङ्कुशेक्षुदण्डकरे अम्ब परात्परे निजभक्तपरे अम्ब परात्परे निजभक्तपरे अम्ब आशाम्बर हरिकेश विलासे आशाम्बर हरिकेश विलासे आशाम्बर हरिकेश विलासे आनन्दरूपे अमित प्रतापे आनन्दरूपे अमित प्रतापे हिमगिरितनये हे मलते अम्बाईश्वरी श्रीललिते मामव हिमगिरितनये हे मलते So, as Parvati is growing in this kingdom, there are a series of events that happen after this, but in the interest of time, to keep it short, Parvati does an intense tapas to gain Shiva, and Shiva finally appears to her, and the wedding is held with great joy from the parents of Parvati, unlike our previous story with Daksha. With their wedding, Shiva and Shakti are united once more, their bond transcending time itself. Their union is not just a moment of joy, but an eternal balance of stillness and movement, destruction and creation, the cosmic dance that sustains the universe. And so, their story continues, not as an ending, but as an everlasting force that shapes existence itself. I will end with the Sindhu Bhairavi Tilana. तझं तझं तधीं जनु तधीं तझं तझं तधीं जनु तधीं धीं तधीं तधिरना तधिरना तझं तझं तधीं जनु तधीं धीं तधीं तधिरना तधिरना धीं तधीं तधिरना तधिरना तजं तणं तधीं तकत झणुता धीं तधीं तधिरना तधिरना तझं तणं तधीं तकत झणुता तदिगिण तुं मृग तकत दिगिण तुं दाप तकदिगु तदिगिण तुं तझं तझं तधीं झणु तधीं धीं तधीं तधिरना तधिरना तझं तझं तधीं झणु तधीं जगदीश्वरी शिव शंकरी सकल कला प्रदायिनी वाणी जगदीश्वरी शिव शंकरी सकल कला प्रदायिनी वाणी अन्नपूर्णेश्वरी लक्ष्मी नमामि अम्बा सिंधु भैरवी रेगा तकतजं तजनुतां सरि निरि सनि दप तजं तजनुतां रेगा तकतजं तजनुतां सरि निरि सनि दप तजं तजनुतां धीं तजं धीं तनं धीं ततों तकधीं तजं धीं तदं धीं ततं तकदिनतां 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 तदिङ्गिणतों तदिङ्गिणतों तकदिनतां तं तकदिनतां तं तकदिनतां गेडत्वं तदिगिणत्वं तछं तछं तधीं जणु तधिं धीं तधीं तधिरना तधिरना तझं तझं तधीं जणु तधीं.
Taken us to Shivan Parvati. I know. We were just there in the air.
Girija Kalyana.
My God. God bless you, ma.
Thank you.
Abundantly.
Thank you.
What grade are you?
10th grade. Branham High School, just there.
Just very neat. So you have any YouTube channel?
No, not as of now.
I think you should start.
Everyone should want to speak.
Anyone has a full video of
Have you
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
it is there, no? Okay. Yeah.